Lucille.
I'm nervous, man. I'll be honest with you.
Oh my goodness. I will tick you over, man. I'll touch you.
My heart is beating 1,000 miles a minute, man.
Yeah, it's not that kind of party, bro. It's not that kind of party, I promise you. As we start talking now, actually I'm gonna kind of go into it. So Fresh Aire Network Podcast Studio, Ware. Today, once again, I am sharing my journey, documenting and doing documentation on my transition from Chicago to Atlanta, and of course what and how I'm doing as an entrepreneur as far as building businesses, building relationships, showcasing Fresh Aire Network, the services, the products, all that good stuff, right? And today, I wanted to go into introducing a good friend of mine now, who has a business that I think is pertinent to a lot of individuals, but he has a business that I believe could help not only entrepreneurs, but people at large as it relates to, I'm not going to even give it away. At any rate, I'm going to go into this as well because it's a teachable moment where you're doing your own podcast, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast is based off of your business. You are obviously transitioning into this new business. Well, it's an old business, but you're kind of qualifying and fortifying it as a business. And hopefully I can help you with those endeavors. So without further ado, I want to start, which I already did, but also this is trainable things.
Mm-hmm.
When I was speaking to you and kind of joking at the beginning about being stiff, right? Think of this as, of course, your ability to share with the audience, and also when you are speaking, you know, silence that out. Right. So as you are, that's training too. You see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
The point being is that I can tell you till you blue in the face how this podcast thing might look, work, be, but now that you're involved in it, this is all training.
Right.
Now, once you see it, and also make sure that you address them. I mean, so many times in podcasts, we forget that we're addressing them because we're so used to, you know, having eye contact where you should be used to having eye contact with the person that you're speaking with.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, we're going to start, bro. Is there anything that you want to say?
No, that's perfect. I'm ready to start.
Okay, cool. So, Fresh Aire Network Podcast Studio, as you know, I talked about the documentation. I told you about how I was going to make sure that I share with you my experiences and the people that I come in contact, and more or less bring more of a tangible face-to-face engagement to help you understand if you want to do business in Atlanta or Chicago, I might add, how that process works, what I do, what are some of the people that's in the city, what are some of the businesses. I think that is important because the more that you know, the better off that you can prepare when you start your own business. So, Mr. Cook, how's it going?
It's going well today. Had to fight off some traffic to get here.
Yes,
but,
this is Atlanta.
Yes,
And
that's
Saturday.
They want to fix the roads on the middle of the day on Saturday, which I guess is okay, but if you got something to do, then you better make plans to drive another direction.
Right. So you have a business, and we're going to start off with, first of all, who are you? Can you share with the audience who and what your business is? And then we can go into perhaps who's your market, why you started a podcast, more or less who are you,
Mm-hmm.
and also like the whys, like why are you starting this? What is the gaps that you see? What is the demand out here that you feel like needed to be filled? And we can go on into those details as we speak. So cool?
That's very, very good. I am ready
Okay.
to address those questions. I am Kevin Cook. I'm 61 years old, and I was born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
So I will say that I am a certified health and wellness coach, also certified as a peer specialist, certified as a pastoral counselor, and I also have a lot of training in substance abuse as well as grief and grief training. So those are kind of my areas of expertise.
And the name of your business is?
The name of my business will be KC Peer Support Behavioral Health Services.
Okay.
And my caption is for the mind, the body, and the spirit. I feel that we are whole individuals, and so we have to address the whole person in his mind, his or her mind, in their body, and as well in their spirit.
So let's do this. You touched on it a little bit. We want to somewhat departmentalize how we present yourself to the audience. And you say you're from Tennessee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your background? Meaning, I know you were in the armed forces, correct?
That's correct.
So can you give us a little bit of background? And I say that because the background gives some of the experience, i.e. the tutelage, challenges, all those good things to perhaps why you are creating and proceeding with this business.
That's very key, and I appreciate that because growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, of course, I was in a close-knit family, right? My mother's side, at least, very close-knit, and we have family reunions every year, and we might travel here and there for these family reunion events. And what actually got me involved in this whole health and wellness approach is because I had a traumatic experience as a child where I was violently raped by a man that he had candy, and I followed him and he raped me. And growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, with that mindset, when other kids find out, they want to ridicule you and, call you names. And of course, I want to fight against those names. So I got into a lot of fights and just grew up angry. I, had thoughts of if I ever catch up with that man. This was in Detroit, Michigan, where it happened. And I probably will never see that man again. But his memory, the event, I remember the broken glass that he threw me down in as he raped my little body, and the smell and all those things. So all of those things became captured in my brain, and so once I became an adult, I was wondering, why was I behaving this way? I know for a fact that I am not this angry and aggressive individual who wants to tear up everything and everybody in my path. So I started investigating. I started going to school, learning things. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol, so I researched and got involved in some what we call CAC training, which is Certified Addiction Counselor. And I took all the prerequisite courses for that. It also had clinical supervision. So I'm ready to be certified as a CAC. I just have not pursued it because I didn't want to be pigeonholed in only addiction, because I found that in my addiction, the way for my recovery was to figure out what's going on with me. And it was more than just my drinking and drugging, right? I had other character defects going on. So that's what got me started in this business, and that's particularly why I want to, be able to do this business on my own, so that I could attract similar individuals. We got probably a great deal of individuals who have had some past trauma, and we carry it around with us everywhere we go. This is what I'm doing now. I'm acting like I'm carrying a big bag of character defects on my shoulder. And once I try to teach people, well, just drop it. Just let it go. You know the bag is there and you know what's in the bag, but you don't have to carry it around with you, and you don't have to interact with other people with that bag on your shoulder.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you for sharing. That's one thing. Second thing is that I appreciate you for not only getting through it and continue to get through it, but also to turn around and be a helping hand / advocate and win story, if you will. So thank you for that. Second thing I want to share with you is, let's talk about who your primary market might be for your business. And now that I'm hearing this and understanding some of your gifts and talents as far as the market that you have changed, we've had some conversations. Can you speak to who is perhaps your primary market that you might go through? Now, this is just as a client, because we have an associate / fellowship and association that you're going to have with other professionals that needs to be forged and, of course, brought to you guys based off of, like you said, as you were speaking, is that there's no one way of getting things done. You sometimes need a hodgepodge of different ideas, concepts, tools, approaches, all these different things, because people learn differently. That's one thing. There's different stages and levels of where they might be mentally. Also, they want to perhaps hear from a person that looks something or similar to them too. So without further ado, let's talk about who your primary market might be.
Well, I intend to have individuals come to me over the age of 18, and they could be 18 until whatever age they are, 18 and above, so I'll put it that way. And of course, I appreciate what you said, that, utilizing a collaborative effort to address this person. I will be on your team. It won't just be me and you, it'll be me and you and maybe your primary care physician, or me, that person, and their mental health counselor or their pastor, because I do work in collaboration with several. As a matter of fact, as a health and wellness coach at Grady right now, I'm working with doctors and psychiatrists and clinicians to address that one individual's situation. So we find that, of course, as a certified peer specialist, it's part of my job to tell them my story and tell them, my struggles with my mental health, and then show them. So if you follow a recovery pattern, you can come out of this thing eventually. And so that's what I try to do. I try to model recovery. I want to be a model for recovery, and to just let individuals know that you don't always have to be addicted and always have to be homeless. You don't always have to be crying, and you don't always have to be hurting, and not only hurting yourself, but hurting other people who love you. I love the book. It's entitled Hurt People, Hurt People. And so,
Good book.
Yes, and there's a caveat to that. Someone came up with the saying, blessed people, bless people. So we want to have hurt people become blessed people, and that way they can continue to bless others.
Thank you for that. So let me make this understood, and you made mention to it, but I think it's very important and vital to your business, your consultant business, that you're currently every day working in this field with not just yourself, but other individuals that collaboratively have the intentions on helping their client, right? So can you speak to the fact that you seeing and being in this lifestyle, if you will, i.e. as your profession, now you're starting a business that I know in some cases filling gaps that maybe some of your counterparts can't do, are not eligible to do it, but at the same time, they're a vital piece in making sure that the totality of the person getting from point A to point B. Also, the last part is that I would like you to maybe speak on the journey, meaning like this is not a quick fix situation. It's also up to the individual to want to ask the questions, to drop the bag, if you will, because it is a choice. And sometimes the choice is not easily made because they don't have the tools.
Correct.
Or the support system, as you say. And I think that's very vital to understand that if you share your thoughts and ideas with Mr. Cook, that he's gainfully every single day in the midst of all kinds of day-to-day activity of people that's going through it, that you creating data and you're getting information and coming up with tactics and maybe approaches to help you as the potential client. So yeah, I just want to kind of speak on what you said and then of course share why I believe that it's good that you're doing a podcast. That's number one. Bring along the audience as it relates to, oh yeah, think about it, this dude is doing this every day. And then he decided to do a business based off of that. Now, sometimes, and most times when people do businesses, they do businesses to fill in gaps, i.e. demands, and then they want to supply it. So yeah, let's speak on your experience as it relates to, you told us about some, the culprit or the reasoning, and now you have gone through, how many years have you been working in this field?
I have been doing this, I was certified in it in 2013, but I have been actively engaging in this type of assistance since 2003, which is 19 years. For 10 years prior to my certification process, I was a homeless resource specialist for the Auburn Avenue Collaborative, Churches Collaborative. And what that entails is Big Bethel AME, Ebenezer Baptist Church, Liberty Baptist Church, Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church, all of those larger churches right along the Auburn Avenue corridor, they hired me to help their homeless. Sometimes a homeless person doesn't know what to do. I'm homeless, I don't know where to go. And they end up at the doorsteps of the church. And so they hired me to help those individuals to find their way out of homelessness and out of addiction and into supportive housing and things like that. So that was the beginning of this journey that I'm on. And then I was hired, in a partial hospitalization program where the most severe of mental health individuals were at, and they had to have a model like myself to learn, okay, I'm having a crisis right now, but it doesn't mean I have to remain, here on the sixth floor of Atlanta Medical Center where, I'm getting doped up all the time and just sitting there like a zombie. I was able to, assist those individuals. Went further and got hired, on what's known as an ACT team, Assertive Community Treatment. where I go out to the individual out in the community. I would drive to where they are and then help them to, set goals for themselves and to, work through their cookie cutter, what we call individual resiliency plan.
Let me ask this question real quick. We touched on it, but I also want to highlight. You are really, some of your best win stories have come from dealing with women. Okay?
That's true.
And you made mention to me in a conversation, and I was asking, like, what's your demographics? Yeah, you 18 and older, but also women. Also, I would like to say and ask, how does, you're in the armed forces, correct?
You're correct.
Okay, so how did the armed forces play a part in your journey, and more importantly, perhaps, I'm sure a lot of veterans are in and out of, whether it's the homeless piece that you speak of,
That's true.
to the mental health piece that you speak of. I'm a veteran. Thank you for your service, first of all.
Thank you.
And at the
You
same
as
time,
well.
let's see and speak about how the mental might have played, i.e. while you were in the armed forces,
And it did.
And then afterwards, dealing with people that, as you were going out to these prospective places, representing these churches that I know that after a while you be like, well, everybody, not everybody, let me calm that down. Veterans, especially in a certain age group, are proud to be a veteran. So many times I've seen homeless individuals that still got the cap on of whatever their brigade was and stuff like that. So can you speak on that? I know that was loaded, but my point is that's my thoughts were.
That was very key, and you mentioned my Army career, which I would say that for the most part I learned how to drink a lot of liquor and do a lot of partying at the EM club, and then off base we would go and spend all night at the clubs out in the city, and then I would show up at 6 o'clock in the morning for the formation, all wrinkly and drunk, and so I had a lot of encounters with the professional soldiers there. My sergeants and my lieutenants and even the colonel have had to come to me on several occasions. Kevin, you got to tone it down, brother. But I was definitely into my addiction at that point. The Army is a place where masculinity is promoted. And as a person in the background of my mind, okay, you've been raped before though. So how masculine are you? And so I had those inner struggles with myself. So I got to tell you, there's a spider or something on that other camera. I just saw him hang down and then reel himself up. That third camera over there.
Oh, we good, man. No,
okay. I don't want you to touch it and get big, become Spider-Man all of a sudden.
You know what I have learned in this year and said? We in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
You got
It's a little different than that in Chicago.
it all kind of bud.
As I digress. Yes, I appreciate it though. I let certain things be that I didn't. So at any rate, yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. And I'm sharing that with the audience and asking that question because I too was in the Army. My brother was in the Army, and I know how he was in the Army for 12, 13 years or so. I was only in there for 4. At the same time, sometimes 4 minutes or 13 minutes of being in the armed forces is enough to sway an individual's mental state because they generally just coming from home, straight from home, with no back experience. And then I'm not in no shape, form, or fashion ridiculing the armed forces at all. And I say that because sometimes it makes the individual more of what they are before they got there.
Right.
They do give structure to an individual that has no structure, and I want to make sure that that's understood. but at the same time, you do have a job to do.
Right.
And that job just so happened to be a strenuous / non-controllable experience, because if you are not top,
Correct.
you're going to take some orders for some folks, right?
Right. And run into a what do you call it, a machine gun nest, because your sergeant told you to.
Yeah,
right?
so speak on, I mean, you don't have to speak on it, I'm just kind of sharing my experience and maybe why I asked the question, but also get back to you and what you were saying about how masculine could you be when you in a masculine environment, and perhaps your mental state wasn't as strong as it could or should have been
That's
to
correct.
endure those kind of environmental experiences. So yeah, speak on, if you could, once you got in the Army and of course you went through these changes of sometimes acclimating yourself to an environment, and also knowing that you don't have as much power in that environment to do what you want to do, which is also a mental block too.
That's
If you don't have control over certain things, then yeah, you sometimes feel like you are a puppet. At any rate, fast forwarding to, why did you start this business, man, and why now?
Well, I'll tell you, as I mentioned before, in the Auburn Avenue Churches Collaborative, talking with homeless, I found out through research that of that homeless population, maybe 75% have some sort of a mental health diagnosis, which could include substance abuse. So 75% of them, and I was, when I came to that knowledge, and many of them were veterans, of course, I came to that knowledge that, some of them didn't know where to go. They were homeless. And so I find that it is potentially the same environment now as far as mental health is concerned. Some people just don't know where to go. Some people are ashamed of saying to another individual, hey, I think I might be depressed, or I think I might have anxiety. Nobody wants, and I don't not like using this term, but I had another patient kind of tell me that I don't want nobody to think I'm crazy. I don't like to use that term crazy because I think it's relative. We are all kind of crazy in our own ways, in my opinion. So that's the market. Individuals who really don't know what to do or where to go, or they're ashamed of going to other people. You can definitely come to me because I understand. I come from a non-judgmental stance. When you come to me, I can't judge nobody because I've done just about everything, I'm telling you right now. And so, and we mentioned before, women, why they, because when I tell my story and I tell folks that, yes, I've been sexually abused when I was 6, and a woman, for some reason, kind of warms up, and so it kind of builds that rapport with the female who says, okay, then he may be able to understand some of my issues, because, growing up a girl in today's society, you got uncles and brothers and people who will try to take advantage of you as a small child. And so it's kind of rare with us males, but for females, I don't think it's all that rare that somebody or a next door neighbor or somebody's going to try you, so to speak.
I'm glad you brought that back up, and the relatability part. And that's what I think is so unique about you wanting to even start a business in that field with that background. But also, let's not disregard or not give any energy to young boys and or males that have been raped. And it falls into the vein of what you're saying, is that goes against masculine code all day long. So once that experience has happened to you, there's no way you are in a space or mental capacity to talk about it with anybody.
Right.
Because of the ridicule that might come with it, the fact that there are not a lot of individuals or places and spaces that, quote unquote, help those kind of individuals. So I want to bring the spotlight back on, yes, it's not that you don't deal with younger boys or people of the male persuasions. It's more of, I want to bring in that point of the relatability. And of course not disregard the men that have, or the young boys that are going through this experience. At any rate, as you started to create this business, right, why is it that you feel that you want to join forces with other medical or mental health providers? Let's speak about that. And I'm saying that because you're not doing this by yourself. You have been in this field for quite a while. You and I spoke about how you were joining forces and had already joined forces with other people that are in the mental professional field. So let's speak on how you have and how you continue to build relationships with doctors and facilities and centers and such to build some kind of synergy in helping your clients to get a more comprehensive approach to it.
Well, I definitely appreciate that question that you posed. I would say this, that I have now been a health and wellness coach for Grady for 4 years.
Grady is a hospital, and it's the premier hospital in Atlanta. In Chicago, if you're listening, it's like Cook, the county. It's like the county hospital where the best of the best go there to train because they see a wide variety of different things in the race. Right. It's not necessarily just in the suburbs, it's in the city. So when you're in the city, that means that any and everything could walk through those doors, and they have more experience on treating those individuals that walk through those doors. So I don't want to negate that people might know that Grady is the premier big hospital in Atlanta. So
it is. They have over 7,000 employees, so you can imagine how many patients we see throughout all the clinics that they have all around the city. And I've been there for 4 years in this capacity. I want to say this, that before I even got to Grady, I worked for Behavioral Health Link on the mobile crisis team. When you call the GCAL number, and that's the Georgia Crisis Access Line, when you are suicidal or when you are, some people are called when somebody is so inebriated with drugs or alcohol that they can't take care of themselves. And we've all seen that before. Somebody might have been so drunk where they can't. But at any rate, I was on a team, and on that team you have a clinician and a field care consultant, and then myself as a certified peer specialist, going to that individual and letting them know that, hey, we don't have to stay in this environment. And so that was before I even came to Grady, where I became part of what we call integrated care, where you're working with doctors and psychiatrists and clinicians. And so it's a team effort on this individual's health. And so as a health and wellness coach, I am tasked with helping that individual not only pursue their mental health goals, but also their physical health goals as well. I try to incorporate a spirituality aspect. And when I talk about spirituality, I'm not just talking about your belief in a higher power. I am also talking about what is your particular purpose in life, and how do you see nature and fit into the whole worldview. And so that aspect of your spirituality must be addressed as well.
Glad you brought that up, because it actually gives a example to the spirit part in the name or the tagline of your business. That's one thing. Also, I would like to ask you questions about who have you built relationships with in the medical field, professionally wise, and do not dumb it down a little bit, but I also want them to hear what kind of people you work with. That's number one. Number two is when you're in a certain situation, you start to learn the lingo, especially when it's happening to you. So can you speak on some of the professionals that you deal with, either on a daily basis or as your business will build relationships with different individuals to help you in this totality?
Sure. So what happens? A patient will go to see their primary care physician, and what they will do, the primary care physician will have the nurse to perform what's called a PHQ-9, which is a physical health questionnaire. 9, which is 9 questions that they ask, and one of the questions is about suicidality and mental and depressed mood, things like that. And if you score, whatever you score, they will make the appropriate referral. They will put it in the behavioral health queue, where we would pick up on that individual and call them and ask them, look, I understand you having stress at home, your husband cheating on you, and so it's causing you a lot of anguish and it's stress, and it's trickling over to your job. So you want to know, how can you be able to go to work? How can you be able to continue to live with this person who is, treating you incorrectly? And that's when they call me. And I'm not really trying to toot my horn. This is the truth. But I get a lot of personal referrals. Doctors will ask for me personally, and the reason why is because of the rapport that I am able to build with the individuals to get them to pursue their health and wellness goals. I mean, it's just the truth. I'm really not bragging, but because people can see in my heart, they can see my heart through my eyes. They can see how much I care for them just from that initial session. They know they got somebody on their team that's willing to fight for them, that's willing to advocate for them, that's willing to support them. I know how to be quiet when I need to. If that person just needs to just vent, I'm there. You can vent on me. You can ask me to help you. Ask your doctor questions, because I do that a lot. People don't know how to explain the doctor. The blue pill makes me feel so and so. And so I can go straight to the doctor and say, well, they're saying that they're having side effects from the medication that you have prescribed them. Can we dummy those or cut the dosage down? So I have training in the medical field, but I also got training in the street. I say I got a PhD in how to be on the streets now. So I can be on a lot of different people's level because I have engaged and interacted with a lot of different levels of people.
Perfect, man. I wanted to highlight that because, and you did a good job, it's not about saying that I just work with doctors. Obviously, it's an integrated care approach to it, and I'm sure that integrated care approach to things is always, in most cases, built off experience, most past experience, right? So the next thing I want to talk about is, what do you think, scratch that out. I wanted to highlight this. So, I'm an entrepreneur. Been one for almost 20 plus years or what have you. Can we talk about how the mental state affects everybody? Because I don't want to negate the fact that we're talking about homeless folks, we're talking about veterans, people who have been through sometimes traumatic experiences, when just everyday life
Correct.
can affect you in a mental way, and we don't want to, I guess, pigeonhole you to dealing with people who are sometimes there's different degrees and levels of mental health or mental anguish or whatever you want to call it. Can you speak to how you can help more than just these people that are supposed to be, you kind of physically see them like homeless people, or if somebody has a substance abuse, you can see it if they don't control it. But this is also affecting everyday people.
That's true. A lot of the individuals that I get have no previous indication that they might have depression or anxiety. A lot of times it's just stress. They are, worried by a lot of things. Just think, we are in, President Biden says we're not in the pandemic anymore. But I'm here to tell you, as a person, a lay person who works in a hospital, that the pandemic still is going on as far as it affects the mind. So the onset of anxiety has risen so much in the United States, and especially here, as far as I've seen, anxiety cases have gone, and people are actually having panic attacks, and they don't know where it came from. I've never, this is the person talking, I've never had a panic attack before. Why am I having panic attacks? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world around you that is in the brain. The brain is a very, very delicate, even though it's, a huge a part of the skull, is a very, very delicate organ. And, any little push in one direction could cause a chemical imbalance. And so all of your feelings and emotions are chemicals that are in the brain. Certain combination of chemicals come together and you be happy. A certain combination of chemicals come together and you be sad. So when that is disrupted by all of this stuff happening, January 6th and pandemics and all of those deaths that happened, I had to do so much grief counseling at Grady, and now, everybody wants me to be the go-to grief guy there, because, I'm so good at the grief side, and that's because my daughter was killed in an automobile accident 7 years ago. It still affects me today, my mental health. But I am able to engage people in their grief counseling. So, yeah, like you said, I'm not only here for people, if you never had any kind of mental health diagnosis, but you feel like you're under a lot of stress, I help individuals to find coping strategies for stress management. I even help individuals, learn to eat healthier, restful sleep, physical activity, and then help them in their social integration, getting along with friends, and then cutting off those so-called friends who are not bringing you positive vibes. Learning how to say, you know what, I can't deal with you anymore. You're too negative, and all that negativity is bringing me down. And so, either you go get help from Kevin, or I will go get help from Kevin. One of us will.
Mm-hmm. Let me bring this point up. I am wanting to highlight at this point support systems. We have spoke today about words like anxiety and depression and grief and anguish and things of that nature. I'm also thinking about, I'm being liberal and say 10, 15 years ago, we didn't even know those names or those signposts, as we call them, to depict feelings and emotions that we had. So I say all that to say that this is something that science is now starting to pay attention to, mental health is something that so many times they didn't take account of. It was always just fix the effects of something, fix what you can physically and sometimes just physically see. Now, not talking about or speaking on or giving the individual an idea of how something may have come in the first place. Now, I've always understood that if you don't know how something started, then you really don't know how to end it.
Correct.
If you don't know the origin of how something happened, this is called cause and effect, it's called causation, they call it that sometimes. My point is that the mental health and the support that we need, we generally speaking didn't know we needed it. We definitely didn't have names and words to kind of signpost or tell what and then we wasn't even talking about it amongst ourselves, which is sometimes the challenge in itself, how we don't have a support system, i.e. Mr. Cook has built a business where individuals can come and speak about certain things, emotions, feelings, thoughts, ideas, that sometimes you don't have a support system, i.e. environment, to get some of this stuff off your chest. Understand that it might be normal for you to be going through this based off of once you spell it out to somebody like, well, what happened again? Oh, well, that happened? Well, how did you deal with it?
Right.
Okay. Oh, you didn't deal with it. All right, well, you want to find some tools and ideas on how to perhaps deal with that. Not only just that, but something else might come up in the future that if you don't have some of these tools or support system in place, then you always will continue to feel like you're alone in this world with no help. And when things are happening to you that quote unquote is named anguish and anxiety and depression and stuff, you may or may not know you in it.
Correct.
And that is the worst feeling that you can ever have. And so many times, black and brown people have not even had the conversations enough to even think about what's going on with them to diagnose it in a certain sense. To yourself, kind of forget everybody else for now. You want to be able to empower yourself to know what's going on with you, or possibly know what's going on with you, and then turn around and get some help based off of, because only you can know the experience that you had when you was a young child, or when you were in the army, or whatever experience you had. Nobody else can tell you how that experience was. So now that you have a gentleman here that built a business and have all kinds of experience based off of his past that he's obviously transitioned through and continue to transition through, that you need somebody. You should have somebody. You're not here on this earth alone, and it is okay to go to other individuals, sometimes traditional and other times non-traditional ways, but ideally be open to getting an understanding about self first, and then of course start to give people like Kevin Cook a chance to take his experience and help you and what you got going on. And it doesn't have to be a one-man or one-woman show. And the integration, care that you've obviously cultivated in your relationships, I think that is good. Is there anything that you want to share with your potential clients, or even speak about the podcast and some of the podcasts that you're going to do is going to highlight some of these individuals that you're speaking of? So I wanted to make sure that we address that in this podcast, introducing yourself, but also give a feel of who you are, what are some of the things that I've had conversations with you about, but also how it can help the potential clients that you got out there.
Well, I definitely appreciate what you mentioned as far as a support system. I have always been a person, no matter where I've worked, that I let individuals know. I tell them, and I learned this working on the mobile crisis team, that it says a crisis has no schedule. Doesn't know that today is Christmas. Sometimes you know, we just bust out crying because it's Christmas and you saying, you know, what's going on with me? You know, so a crisis knows no schedule. And so I would give individuals my phone number and tell them 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to answer the phone, but you can definitely call me. If I'm awake, then I'll answer. If I am asleep, then you leave me a message as if you are talking to me, because getting it out is, like you mentioned, is a part of that healing. I'll tell Mr. Kevin, I'll leave him a message. Whenever I do wake up and hear the message, I will return the call and see how you're doing. And so having said that, yes, I am launching my business right now as we speak. We're going to start out by doing it by being virtual over the telephone or through one of the visual apps that you can use to where we can see each other face to face. So, you know, if you individuals out here are looking for a health and wellness coach right now, you can call me at 404-275-2344. We will set up, you know, an appointment, and, you know, we will start working together on your health and wellness goals. I also want to mention, you know, like I said, I don't have a brick and mortar business place available right now. I'm looking at places, and so that's when I bring on my additional staff that I intend to incorporate. We're going to be partners in the collaboration, where I have 2 individuals who are paraplegic. So guess where my paraplegic clients are going to go to? They're going to be seen by my paraplegics. I have a young lady who speaks French. She also speaks Wolof. So she will be that individual who can translate the French and do the support services for French. I have a Hispanic young lady, Latinx, as she likes to be called. And she, you know, is very fluent in English and Spanish. So, you know, I have found that not everybody is going to like Kevin. So, and I found that out the hard way. I just figured I can just throw my personality on somebody and they automatically would just melt. But that's not always the case. So I have learned that the people that I can't reach, because reaching the person is the most important part of what we do. It doesn't necessarily have to be me, and I don't have the ego like I used to whereas I feel that, you know, it's only got to be me. No, it could be someone else. As long as you are getting the help that you need, it will not make me any bit of difference who you got it from. So I'm you know, looking for my phone to start ringing, and we can start setting up some appointments right now.